Hi, and welcome to the Survivor Maryland Winner Take All Episode 11 live after show. Wow, 11 episodes already, and there's still 20 more to go. I'm your host and editor, Anders. Joining me today, I've got a bunch of great guests and recent Endure boot, Erin of Survivor Michigan. How are you, Erin?
I am doing amazing. Truly no better gift to have been booted in the same night as Sabrina from this season of Survivor Maryland. Um, we're doing great. We're thriving.
Icons stay together, I suppose. Uh, we have from Subversion Live, Devon. Devon, introduce yourself to the audience.
Um, what to say? I was briefly on Subversion Live. No spoilers. It was a great show. If you skip the first few episodes and then just watch from there, it's a great series based on the mole. I'm like Jack, but like less so in terms of like Survivor Maryland fandom. Uh, I was on the last season's recap like 4 years ago, standing Doug, and spoiler alert, that is just going to continue tonight.
Well, you're in good company with Aaron here. Joining us again after a stint where he made insane takes like Eric is a bad game player, we've got Ian's roommate, Cooper. How are you?
Offensive. That's offensive, and then I will stand by that take if we bring it up again. Yes, I'm Cooper. I'm from Survivor Michigan. I hosted seasons 2, 3, and 4 there, and played seasons 1 and 5 all out on YouTube. Go give it a watch.
And then finally, joining us from episode 2, creator of one of possibly multiple Michaela fan cams, the president of the hashtag Michaela Monday fan club, Mother Michaela. Jack, how are you?
I'm lovely. Thank you so much for inviting me back. When you were inviting me back, I was like, oh, I hope this is not Michaela's boot episode. And I'm so happy that it was truly an episode where Michaela mothered. So thank you so much for having me on tonight.
Of course, and she will forever be Mother, but this episode of all. Also, we've got some support for Jack. So, this episode, we come out of last episode with JS pissed that he wasn't in the vote, Michaela pissed that everyone betrayed her, and everyone else pretty happy. I just want to start off with, what world is it that you would be like, this person's in my alliance, I don't want them to get their way, but I do want them to still work with me after I betray them and lie to them?
So bad.
I mean, yeah, just truly the thought process behind that I cannot fathom. And especially, I was so shook. Like, first thing I wrote down was that Tony lied to JS right before the vote. Like, the fact that even walking into Tribal, he was like, it's Michaela, everybody's writing down Michaela. And then to just, like, not do that is so insane. Actually, so insane. And the fact that Matria looked so shocked at the end of this episode by what happened, I was like, how are you shocked right now? Genuinely, how are you shocked right now? Did not make any sense to me.
No, yeah, they played everything bad. Every single aspect of like that post vote into the next vote, just bad. Because they left key members of their alliance out of the vote. They tried to patch things up and then just continued to talk to their alliance, being like, everything's fine. No one's gonna do anything. We're just gonna vote out egg roll and everything's gonna be okay. And it was weird. Like, there were 6 days between the last vote and this vote. It seems like they kind of were just like, here comes another tribal. We're gonna slay the day again.
They had 5, Jack. It was the 5 of them till the end.
But was it?
They truly chose. They chose the one path of like not voting out a returnee last episode, while also putting Michaela on the bottom and pissing off JS. They could not have done it any more perfectly for them to be on the bottom this episode. Like, if they had tried, truly they could not have. Like, it was a baffling decision. Really, all they needed to do was just vote Michaela. Like, Fish doesn't have anyone on the returnee side he wants to flip with, unlike Michaela, who's going to work with Katie and Morgan. And you're not going to piss off JS. And then you probably can do what you just tried to do this episode and just bring all the newbies back together. So I don't mind that. It's the way they went about it and who they chose to vote out and who they were actively trying to piss off. That was all bad. All bad.
Yeah, from the moment in the last episode where Miranda, I think, has a confessional, like, I just don't want JS to feel like he's always getting his way. I want to, like, put him in his place a little bit. Like, you can't really do that. I think in Survivor, it's like you kind of have to go to either one extreme or the other and be decisive in that. And when you kind of hedge, I think that's where things get tricky. Like, either you just vote JS out and like shut him down that way, or you placate him and make him feel great about his position. But if you kind of hedge and you in the middle, like you express your displeasure but then keep him in the game and all that, it just gets really messy from there.
Yeah,
the funniest part of all of it is that they're like, we don't want JS to get his way, and we're going to lie to him about it. Like, they expect him to vote with them, but you just lied to him constantly up until the vote.
I'm not even kidding. I think this was just genuinely a 0% strategic decision. Like, it was purely emotional, which, like, I don't have a problem with people who play emotionally. That's totally fine, as long as there's some strategy basis behind it. You have to match up that emotion with strategy. But this was just purely, like, after weeks and weeks and weeks of saying, like, we're sick of JS, they were like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to stick it to JS. We're going to show him. And, like, that's it. That was all they wanted to accomplish with this move, was to say, fuck you, JS. And they thought that on the other side of that, he was just going to be like, and maybe it was because of his pathetic display last week of like, please side with me, please vote for, like, please back me up, please vote for Michaela, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they thought he was just going to, like, come crawling back. But there was just, I don't understand. I just think it was 0% strategic, and they just thought that they could say, fuck you, JS, and that he was not going to do anything about it, and was just going to come crawling back to them and be like, I'm so sorry, guys. Like, I clearly messed up, and you guys are mad at me, and I want to fix it. But it's like, they have clearly, like, they've spent so much time with this man and clearly do not understand a thing about him. Because the second he heard that Michaela, like, even threw his name out, which, again, Miranda did, he was like, I want that bitch dead. And it's like, okay, so you think you're going to go ahead and get away with blindsiding him and he's not going to do anything about it? Like, so stupid. The opposite of strategy.
Mm-hmm. And as fun as it is to kind of be on a round table like this and pile on like, oh, they're so dumb, which I mean they are. It was a mess the way that they played. It is interesting to look at like how this happens, because this isn't something that unusual that we see on Survivor or on like College Survivor. And I think the big thing is how just like people just get caught up in running the game and being in control. They've been in control, like Miranda, Jack, and them for like the whole game. And it's just easy to think that that's always going to be the case and that you're just kind of invulnerable with that. I think it just kind of corrupts your brain in a way. I don't know how else to put it. I just think that it was clear in like how they were acting. Like this vote in particular, the way that the alliances were structured and how there were the two in the middle with Michaela and Fish. Like you can't just like vote out one of them in advance without having like a very clear idea of how you want the next round to play out. And if you don't have that, then it's a total disaster. But they're just like, oh, well, we've been in control. It'll all work out. We're the best players. We're the good players. And, you know, we see what happens like the very next round.
Yeah, and I think, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jack.
No, it's very clear that like Miranda in particular, like played super passively, like in her alliance, like once like things like were going her way. But then, yes, isolating JS and then letting that happen was totally terrible. I did have one question because this did not make the edit in any way, but like at the last tribal, like Miranda and Sam had like a whole fight basically, and they were going at each other, and like there wasn't any like scene like reflect like talking about if they mended their relationship. I don't think it truly mattered or like had any relevance, but like were they fine after that?
No, they don't like each other.
That's the whole okay.
Like another important thing to point out is that Sam still has the black vote that can be played on anyone who's voted out. She didn't use it on Miranda. She doesn't like Miranda, and that was part of the reason why they took out Miranda instead of Jack potentially, is that Sam didn't use her black vote. At the end of the day, Sam is going to vote with the 5 Majesta because, well, what else is Sam going to do? She doesn't like Miranda, but like, whatever. Look, she knows her game, and you don't. And that's on you.
Anders, can I ask, who did the newbies think they were? They thought they were voting with JS and Michaela? They thought it was 6-4 the other way?
So what they thought was it was going to be 5 Majesta are voting for Eggroll.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, Michaela votes with the returners. It's 5-5. But they also had try to talk to Katie and Morgan and everyone, been like, look, it's going to be egg roll. It's not worth going to rocks. Blah blah blah. That's also why Miranda didn't play her removal idol. I mean, I don't know why they thought it was just going to be so easily split, but that's what they thought. They thought no matter what, it's going to go our way.
Interesting. Okay, I was wondering why Miranda didn't play her thing, but I guess
I think that was so stupid.
Assuming the other people were gonna flip.
The confidence of they're not going to rocks for him, okay, it's so incredibly dumb in my opinion to even risk that and just not even. Yeah, I just think that was so
well
insane.
in the line of incredible blunders, we have Michaela feels burned by both sides. Even though it's unjustified, because why are you mad at the returnees for not voting with you when you clearly still weren't with them? Tony, who has all the runway in the world to get Michaela back on his side, that conversation between him and Michaela is, I think it also speaks to how Tony plays this game and his story thus far. It is very self-serving and unaware of other people's wants, desires, or feelings in the game. You can have all the words about how JS plays this game, and there are a lot to say, but at least JS makes you feel heard. Tony says, you can't be mad at everyone. You've got to work with us.
It was I wrote down the quote. He said, you can be mad, but it's not smart because you have to work with us. That's such an insane thing to say to somebody who there's so many things wrong with this, because you should never tell somebody that they can be mad. That's one of the things that pisses me off most in Survivor, is when you get blindsided and people are like, you're allowed to be mad. It's yeah, I fucking know. I am mad. I don't need you to tell me I can be mad. So there's that. And on top of that, he's like, it's actually not smart for you to be mad, though. It's not smart for you to be mad. So he's like, you can, but you shouldn't. And
Aaron,
don't yell at me.
Aaron, you can be mad right now, but it's probably not smart for the podcast.
It's that. And then he's like, and also you have to work with us. So you shouldn't be mad at us because you have to work with us. But also, she doesn't have to work with you, Tony. Guess what? She doesn't have to.
And she didn't.
Shut up. Oh my God.
I just wrote that. I wrote he feels he's icky. Tony's icky. I felt the ick. I felt so uncomfortable. I felt like I was in the back seat of that car. And I literally, the doors were locked and I couldn't get out. I was so uncomfortable watching that whole conversation. Hated it. Hated the way he did that whole thing. It was weird.
It was all terrible.
I also want to know about this conversation. Who do people think that Michaela made the right move and went with the returners, or do you agree with Tony in the fact that she should have stuck with the returners? I'm curious what people think.
I think she 100% made the right move.
I think she played so well this episode. I'm biased, but I do think she played this round exceptionally well given her position in every single aspect from post vote up until actually voting out Miranda.
Yeah, I think it's merit-worthy how not only did she get her way in this vote, but she also set things up further in advance. She has something going on with Morgan and Katie and all that, and I think that's key to have. You're not just sort of voting with this block where you're on the bottom. She's worked to get assurances that things are going to play out her way down the road, which I think makes it overall a good move for her.
Yeah, I think that the returnees are much more fractured within themselves than Majesta is. So 100% it's better for her to go that way, because they're tight out of circumstance. I think that they have quite literally been forced to work together because of this super powerful and tight Majesta unit that has put them in that position. So her going over there and saying hey, I want to vote with you guys, and looking long term, here are some other things that we can do, because they're all all of the returnees are always going to see each other as the threats. So it's making your inroads there and building yourself up there is the better option.
Yeah. Okay. I completely agree. I just thought it was funny that Tony's trying to point out to both Michaela and JS of oh, your best move is to obviously work with us, when the closest they have pushed them so far out of their alliance, their closest relationships. Michaela is now the closest to Katie and Morgan, and JS is now the closest to Doug. And it's now you've pushed them so far out that their best move is literally to work against you, which is why it's so funny during all these conversations Tony is having too, because he's not even right in the sense that they should be working with him. they've literally proven over and over again that they should no longer be working with the newbies, which is what I think it's even worse.
Also, I think it's so funny. Like, I can't imagine how Michaela felt coming out of that conversation when she was like livid at Dylan for saying like you're running out of time. Like when she was so mad about that, imagine coming out of this and then Tony is sitting there saying like you can be mad, but you shouldn't be, and like you have to work with us. Like it's like the same person.
Like Katie said,
yeah.
Tony is Dylan 6.0, so it makes sense. Michaela probably had similar feelings, even if they weren't like explicitly stated. So. The spirit of Dylan just kind of has inhabited Tony in some aspects.
I want to talk about the Katie Michaela thing to just compare the strategies, but I also want to highlight a moment that is so funny to me. It's like Jack has a very clear voice when she's lying to you, like when she's trying to put on a character like, no, we can't vote out Miranda. It's 5 strong till the end. And it's like JS's confessional of, Jack, when you're being such a fake bitch, it's just like so aggro for no reason. I love that line. But the Katie Michaela conversation is exactly how Tony should have played it. Where Katie's like, look, I understand you're mad at me. Here's what I did. Here's why it didn't work out. And like, you can come over. You are not on the bottom. Like, I want to work with you. Like, at the end of the day, I want to work with you. You can't trust them, and there are opportunities here that you don't have with them because they've already shown you they don't trust you. Like, Katie and Tony have all the information, but how they use it is what's separating their gameplay.
Yep. Yeah,
and that's why Katie's getting the first call for Survivor 50.
Real. I wrote, Katie's so good at people management. Like, that is what she does. That is why she is the queen. Like, that is why, like, that's what she's been doing this whole game. And that's why, as big of the target has been on her back, it's like, it's never been that big. It's never been big enough to get her even, any votes? So, like, yeah, she's in a great spot. And her people management, she handled that so well. Like, complete opposite end of the spectrum as Tony. Of, like, just, this is where we're at. This is like what our path forward is. Should you, and it wasn't like this is what you have to do. It was like, should you choose to work with me? Because I kind of like, because I understand if you don't want to, but I do think it's best for you. But like, just not outright telling her what to do.
And what was really notable about that conversation for me was she was being like pretty assertive about, like, she was like, the tone was like very like almost like confrontational and like really stating her case and be like, this is where he messed up last round. And I think that a lesser player or lesser survivor mind might watch that conversation out of context and be like, oh, I would have played that so much better. I would have had more finesse. But we see with people like Sandra and I think other personalities on like orgs and live games and stuff, that kind of assertiveness really works in the end, both in the short term of like getting people on your side, but also long-term jury management, like getting people to respect you as a player in the game. Like that, it just kind of works. And like I echo everyone that Katie's been super impressive. I actually think, like, all things considered, this is probably just the time to say it. Given this some thought, I think she has to be like probably the best Survivor Maryland player of all time, right? Like, not even that close. I think it has to be like her number one with a bullet, even if she had gone out at merge, to be honest. I just think like what she's done across the board has just been miles above like anyone else I've really seen. And then of course this episode, finding the idol and all that, like it's a pretty impressive legacy she's put together here.
And like, she didn't even think she had that legacy going into it because her Guts and Glory game was so shit on, like from like the jury and like other people. So she came into this feeling like she had so much to prove, and she's proven it. Like, that's Mother, that's Icon, that's Katie. Like, she's cemented her legend status, and like, get that away. Get that out of here. Like, Katie is forever an icon. I also just, a really funny moment when she finds the idol. She did this when she won Final Immunity in Guts and Glory. She just runs away.
Yeah.
Like, when she won Final Immunity, she just runs away. She's like, what do I do? And then when she finds idol, she runs away. Like, I don't know. That's funny. I like her. She's amazing and queen.
I just want to add, I think one of the most impressive things about Katie this season is the number of people who just basically consider her probably their top ally. You have Tony, Doug, probably JS is first now, but like second, I would still think is probably Katie. You have Eggroll, Morgan, Michaela. That's 5 of the other 8 people in the game are basically saying, yeah, like Katie is one of my top allies, which is why I think no matter how the season plays out, I'm going to say that Katie has played a better game this time than Guts and Glory. And that's not to take away from her Guts and Glory game, which I thought was pretty good. I think she has just played so well, especially socially this season, to get in with literally almost every single person on the cast, which is crazy to do. Crazy.
And if she wasn't, and just sorry, really quick, and if she didn't come into this game with the winner reputation, like people knowing that she won last time, this would be over. She would just have like an auto win, basically. The only thing that's like putting this in doubt to some extent is that people realize that she's a threat. So yeah, full marks to her for sure.
And I think another example of Katie versus Tony in this episode, or at least their different ways of playing the game, is the JS of it all. In this first section, before we go to immunity, we have JS comes to Katie, tells her all the information that she already knows because of Tony, but she's here to placate, to listen, to get all of this. She goes to tell Tony, okay, JS is considering flipping, like he's unhappy. And she also sprinkles in some, Katie's very good. If you ever watch a conversation with Katie, she's very good at putting in a one or two things that's like, by the way, this is how they feel about you, or like, yeah, they said this or did this. Just as a like, oh, I should think about that. She says to Tony, oh yeah, he doesn't think you're playing a good game. Also, he's going to betray you. And then Tony goes to JS and does a horrible job of making him feel good. With another great moment of JS going, who do you want out for the rest of the game? Tony says, I'll tell you who I want this time. JS goes, who do you want out this time? Well, who do you want out? Girl, what are you doing?
So bad. So bad.
So insane. Truly so insane. Yeah, he handled it terribly. And also I thought it was so funny in like his conversation with Katie when when she was saying like JS said all this, blah blah blah, things that Tony had already told her, and he was like, I think he's lying to you. It's like, these are things that you've already told Katie are true. Like, what do you mean you think he's lying to her? That was so insane to me. And yeah, I did write. Tony literally just hates when anyone else is playing the game without him, even when they're doing the same thing he is. Like, if it is not surrounding Tony, if it is not involving Tony, he just hates it. Like, he's like, how dare you do that? Like, he was so mad at JS for even going to Katie and like saying all of this when it's like, you fucking lied to him first. Like, do you want him to just sit back and not do anything about it? Like, that was just, yeah, the entitlement is actually insane to me. I did laugh at like the little princess paranoid over here line, but other than that, I think that it was just like, yeah, it was just absolutely terrible, and Tony continues to be the worst.
I mean, that goes back to him with like the newbies and the returnees, like him being like, you returnees are all sticking together, and then they're like, well, you newbies are all sticking together. He's like, oh, but it's different. Like,
Yeah.
Like, he's so entitled. It's like, it's scary how ick it makes me.
Yeah.
I know this is going to be a hot take. I want to jump in and defend Tony briefly for 2 seconds before I get attacked. I think up until this point, he has played a mostly good game and along the way understands kind of what needs to happen. I think this episode finally showcased that like sometimes he just lacks the execution of it. He knows that he needs to go talk to JS and try to mend things. He knows he needs to go talk to Michaela and try to mend things. His execution has just been poor on those things. So in one sense, I still like that he has some game sense and knows what he needs to do. I think this episode, what he really struggled was like the execution of finding the balance of that social relationship and doing good damage control.
Well, because like I think what Tony wants is, yeah, he knows what his path is and like he knows what he's looking out for. He just expects everyone else to lie down and let it happen for him. He's like, I shouldn't have to put in any work. Like, I shouldn't have to do anything. Everybody else should just be playing my game for me.
Well, I think to defend Cooper's comment here, I do think that it's kind of the phenomenon I see where like someone who's a super fan goes into Survivor or any game and they flop. Because like there's a difference between watching and understanding a game and like actually being able to execute it. Like Tony is friends with Katie. Almost, I'm very confident that he knows how she played, why she succeeded. And they talk a lot, so he gets the sense of how to play the game. I think the issue is taking that knowledge and making it effective is where we see him fail. Like he understands. Like Cooper said, he understands I need to talk to this person. He just doesn't know what he needs to say or how he needs to say it, and that maybe in the moments where your ego comes out, how to control that. I think that he is shown to be very poor at regulating emotions when he gets heated. Like he's very defensive.
So
about
Tony is Brandon Donlin.
Well, he's certainly better at competitions. But sure. I mean, he also has an alliance that trusts him, so very different.
True. That is different.
One thing I'll add to that too is like, it's not only that he can't execute, but I think he overrates his ability to execute, and I think that's just further down that thread of like being in control can really kind of warp your perspective on things. And I think in his head, he's like, I've ran all the votes, even though he's just had this sort of inherent advantage because the newbies in the game had a numerical advantage that they've been able to leverage because he's like in a good spot and running these votes. In his head, he's like, I am really good at Survivor. Look at this. This is all working out. Like I can, turn water into wine and make all these things happen. And so I think that, not understanding it on skill level is a problem, because if he understood, if he was like had experience on the bottom and things like that, he might recognize like, okay, maybe I'm not the best at executing all the time. And then I think there's still a way to find a win out of that. But even if your skill is low, if you overrate that skill, that's, I think, one of the biggest problems.
I'm excited to see how both he and Jack play from the bottom, given they haven't had to yet this season. And I think, that one of like, I hope that it will help Tony's game or potentially any future games he has played, because once you understand, like once you've played on the bottom for the first time, you kind of understand. And even then when you're back on the top, you have such a clearer vision of like, oh, this is how they're feeling. This is what they're doing. This is how they're acting when they don't have a lot of control. And I think once you can see both sides, hopefully that opens up kind of his game and Jack's game. Although Jack, I think, struggled with it less. But I'm hoping if they get back in control at any point, that kind of gives them a better sense of maybe how to play from the top, knowing what it feels like to be on the bottom as well.
I just really feel like Tony has like also ruined his one chance of working himself back up. Because like coming into this, what's crazy is that Tony comes into this as the person with the closest relationship by far with a returnee. And yet this entire time, he's not really utilizing that. Like in the sense of like, yeah, he's like, protect me from that side. And like, that's been happening. But it's like, he's not like, how are we working on this together? How are we both getting to the end? How is this? He's just like, this is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to affect you. Deal with it. And so he's within doing that. He's like, and Katie even said this episode, she's like, I'm totally fine just voting Tony out at this point because he's being so annoying. Like he has effectively ruined his relationship with her in the way that he's been playing. And I think that like coming out of this and now that he's on the bottom and after this whole thing where like, Katie's just kind of sick of him. I just don't know how he works himself back in when the person who he was actually closest to and his closest relationship doesn't even really want to deal with him anymore.
So, I still don't see Katie coming for him anytime soon. She has other people to deal with, like Jack and JS first, I think. But we'll see.
I mean, I think it's also when you're working with Katie, who is, doing incredibly well from the bottom, when you're talking and understanding her game, you also, in the same way that Devon's talking about being the majority warps your brain, when you're working with someone like Katie, that also warps your brain to maybe think you are playing an equal game because you're sharing all this information, because you're in a duo with her. So it's also like, well, I'm doing all the same work. Why am I not getting the same results? How come Katie's getting everything and I'm getting nothing? Which, of course, is like a, girl, what are you talking about? What about the last 10 votes?
Yeah, oh my God, yeah, when they had that part of the conversation, when he was like, you've been controlling this whole game. She was like, what control did I have when Dylan went home? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean this whole, like, oh my God, yeah, that was so insane.
And he immediately folded and was like, I don't know.
Well, okay, we'll get to that moment because that is such a funny moment.
Oh my God.
The challenge itself, I love Eric just immediately hating this challenge. And I get it. Like, the coconut chop's immunity is bad if you're on the bottom. But why I love it is because both times, or the times I've run it, the person on the bottom never goes home. It always kind of shifts things a little bit. And this one especially was very interesting because it's like, this is the worst challenge for Jack it could ever be. And it's so funny. Also, I just love how angry Tony gets whenever someone touches his names. Katie gets. They all get so mad.
Katie went from like diplomatic to like taking someone's name down, like, oh sorry, and then by the end she's like, fuck you, like just basically
Sam says fuck you, Katie. It's like, what is she?
Because Katie took one of Sam's name, but my favorite part is Katie takes JS's twice and says eye for an eye, and he goes, "That's 2 eyes, asshole."
Yeah, he's got 2.
He's got 2. Yeah, it was all the sorries at the beginning that really got me. It was everybody being like, sorry, like as they take the paper down. I'm like, just fucking do it. Like, you don't need to apologize. And then it just, slowly devolved into like, go fuck yourself. Like, this is getting personal. It was so good, though.
Michaela's just standing there.
Yeah, Queen Michaela.
Michaela and JS, I felt like were in the best spot to win this challenge solely because they were in the middle. Like neither side, the sides were just going to knock each other out and basically leave them in. They were set up very well to win this challenge.
Yeah, and Michaela played it really well because she planted the seeds with Morgan and Katie saying, I want to work with you. And then she proved it during the challenge by like taking out a newbie when a returner was still up. And then she gave the idol clue to Morgan. And even then, like, she did well enough with Morgan where Morgan was like, yeah, I'll give Michaela the win. Like, why not? So, like, she ate.
Oh my God, somebody...
She wasn't an answer to any question, but maybe that's a good thing.
No, and somebody afterwards was so mad. They were like, I can't believe Michaela... Oh, it was Jack. She was like, I can't believe Michaela, like, took out a newbie. Like, she, like, took her out... And I was like, as if you didn't just write her name down. As if you didn't just, like, vote out her closest ally. Like, what do you mean you're mad that she took you out of a challenge?
And they still think she's going to vote with them.
Right.
It's weird.
I was
even
like,
after
your Tony
giving Morgan
is showing.
the clue.
Like, Jack's Tony was showing there.
Yeah, Michaela gives Morgan the clue. And then they're like, Michaela, okay, she might flip to the returners. Like, it's fine. No, you don't have her at all.
Anders, I agree with you that this like the impact of this challenge on the game is almost solely like long term going to be Jack winning literally everything.
literally everything.
And you did not help, might I say, by reading all of the things afterwards, which she won a few more that weren't even in the challenge.
Well, look, I'll tell you, it's because I think I cut a question from the actual challenge because no one got it right, and it was most likely to win. And I said, we're not going to spend a minute on this when I can just do it at the end. But yeah, the point is, Jack did win a bunch, and it's important that we know that because, well, Jack goes from this person who is, I think to a lot of people, they're all talking to her, they all like her, but she's not the big threat, right? And then suddenly Jack wins literally all the good superlatives, and it's like, I guess Jack is a huge threat. And she's like, fuck, I did not want this to happen to me.
Which I thought was interesting because I didn't expect her game to like be blown up from this challenge. Like it didn't seem like her game was that visible. Like to like I thought she was doing.
I think
that's
why she won those things though, is because like when they're answering that questionnaire, they're like, who's most likely to win? It's not somebody who looks obvious right now. It's somebody who is going to make it to the end and is going to win.
Yep. Then she should have modeled her gameplay after JS, and then maybe she would be in a different position.
I do think it was funny too how Jack, when she was like talking about all the things she won, she was like, I won like most likely to win, most powerful, like person you want to take home to your parents. Like that was the same caliber as the other ones. I was like, yeah, how dare they want you to go and have you meet their parents? Truly so impactful.
But it's a positive one. It means they like you. And Katie and Doug won like most likable, but like. Other than that, Katie and Doug didn't win any of those positive ones, which was crazy because they're seen as like the top dogs.
Well, it's the same way it's the same way we're talking about. Like, if you're thinking who's most likely to win, you can't imagine Katie or Doug getting to the end. They're up to go every week, except for the week last week when it was Michaela or Fish. But like, can you, if they were put Katie's most likely to win or Doug is most likely to win, how the fuck are they getting there?
But that's the funny thing too, is that it is like, yeah, Katie and Doug are literally talked about every single week, and then who ends up getting the votes? Eric. Every single week. Like that's what happens every time.
But we see Michaela wins, gives the clue, and we see the girls' priority is back. And what do they do this week? Let's get out a girl. There's too many.
Well, you got to vote out a girl to make a girls' alliance work sometimes.
That's real.
A girls' alliance doesn't work with every girl. A girls' alliance works with just a couple of them.
Also, it's not like they were like, we're going to vote out a girl this week. Like, they were like, we need to do what JS wants to do this week, which is vote out Jack or Miranda.
Yeah, and don't forget last season, Morgan and Jasmine and Angie tried to bring in Amanda, the woman hater, into their girls' alliance to vote.
She's not a woman hater.
She
Well
grew.
documented
She became
woman
a woman
hater.
appreciator. I hope she's a woman lover now. But like I would. But you know, you have to understand that Morgan has a history. So like, if they want to vote out a girl, like let them vote out the Amandas.
I think that little trio is in the best spot moving forward for the next few votes, given that the people on the bottom, like Tony and Jack, are still going to be targets. And it feels like they're going to start to go after JS and kind of leave that trio in the middle. And I see them having a lot of power these next few votes about which way they want to swing and who they really want to keep in the game long term. So we'll see.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a
like
comment about Amanda won't vote out a man, and like there's some video of that's me. That's me in that video to that person. Hi.
I remember this for some reason.
Because I live streamed season 7 on my Twitch back in the day. So yeah, that just made me laugh.
Oh yeah. What was I gonna say? Something about what Cooper said. Cooper, what are you talking about?
That group having a lot of
the trio.
like, being in the swing position, kind of moving.
Yeah,
forward.
you see, and that's the thing too about the Katie like Survivor Maryland GOAT argument is that I think her winning game in season 4 was really good. Like being able to actually be in that middle spot and you flip between different alliances. Like I feel like everyone talks about that, like, oh, we could do this, but no one actually does it. But Katie did it. And I think she's one of the few people that can actually like pull that off effectively in that trio. And obviously that trio is really socially connected. It looks pretty good for them. So we'll see. We'll see.
So we see post tribal or post challenge. We have Doug. Before all of this, you have Tony making a lot of lies, trying to hide things. Like he says to Michaela, yeah, the returners wanted this. And then to JS, yeah, the returners wanted you out. And then Doug just goes, what the fuck? No, Miranda threw it out. And JS is like, okay, I can't trust Tony. And we see the returners are like, we want to placate you. Oh, the Doug line. Let's talk about Doug and JS, the ringleader alliance. We have Doug say, JS is like me. He wants to get his way. So he gets to have his way for now. If you're going to come over to us because they didn't vote how you wanted to, come over.
This is exactly what I was saying last week. Like, Doug just knows how to manage JS in a way that nobody else in this game does. And I think that's why this relationship is, like, so beneficial for Doug, is that he's like, I see you. I see how you operate, and I know how to... Yeah, exactly. It's very romantic. And I know how to, like, work that to my advantage. Because right now, it works to his advantage. And especially now that JS does not trust a single other person in this game. And he's like, now I'm all in. Like, he has to be all in on Doug. And so it's like, yeah, this puts Doug in a great position, like, where JS is concerned. Of like, he's like, I know you have anger. I know you have animosity. Let me just point and you shoot. Like, that's pretty much how it's working.
This is in my notes, the line Doug on JS. Quote, I'll give him his cookies and grapes. Some of us vaguely remember that in the episode. Like, you know, classic Doug. Yeah, I think it's great for Doug. I think Doug recognizing that he needs to carve out some agency that's separate from like Katie and Morgan and all that makes a ton of sense. There's a comment earlier in the live stream that was posted about how this, you know, it's the way that the majority in this season mess things up makes it, you know, like it's easier to look back at Doug and Santi last season and be like, okay, they did a good job because it's so easy to mess up. So props to Doug for that. Props to Doug for how he's playing this season. I think if Doug went in guns blazing, it's like, okay, I'm going to run this season too. I think that we would look back at him in the last season and say, okay, maybe he's not as good of a player. But the fact that he like just understands that each season presents a new challenge and he has to kind of give whatever season he's in, whatever it needs, and is willing to take different roles. I continue to be impressed by this man.
Yeah, I would like to say that I I will give Doug and JS both their flowers for this relationship, and I think it has benefited them both so much in this game. It has given Doug somebody that has protected him while he's been on the bottom. And like Devin said, I think Doug has had to play 2 very different games, and he's played 2 strong games now in back-to-back seasons. And I think he is also one of the better Survivor Maryland players. But I will also give JS credit for being a part of building this relationship, and when shit hits the fan, having somewhere else to go, right? If he doesn't have that relationship, maybe he is just stuck on the bottom over there because he doesn't have anywhere to flip to. So it's benefiting them both. It gives Doug a little power and protection a few rounds ago, and now it's giving JS a home moving forward and protection, and now he's again voting correctly and like voting people out that he wants. So I think this relationship has worked because, yes, they're so similar. They both realize that they need somebody else in this game, like they said, to get themselves further because they are both seen as big threats. So why not work together? And I think they have done that so well and found a number one ally when nobody else wanted to be their number one ally.
So I will say, and this is where I'm going to say something that I think is going to surprise a lot of people. I actually think JS played very well this episode. I think that JS actually really impressed me this episode because I think this was the first time I really saw more of JS the player than JS the character. I still don't like JS the character. I want to make that clear. I think he's still, you know, calling people bitches left and right. Like, he's still a little too much for me there. But this is the episode where I was like, because he finally was not, you know, in such a power position where he like could only be JS the character, and he was like, this is what I want to do, this is what I can do because I'm in power. Him actually having to scramble and actually having to like come up from the bottom and like figure his shit out, and like actually getting to see JS the player shine more than JS the character in this episode, I really enjoyed. And so, yeah, I was like, I knew I was going to come in here. I was going to say something that shocked people, but I actually did. I think that he did a really good job this episode in like clearly making the Majesta people comfortable enough to like still think that he was going to vote with them and like still think that he was good with them or whatever. And like, this is where it comes in every time after post tribal, where even though it was complete bullshit, where JS would go up to the returnees and be like, you know, I'm so sorry, like maybe next time, like we'll still work together. I want to keep our relationship. Like, I want to keep this line of communication open. Like, he made sure to do that after every single round. He made sure at all times that he had lines of communication opened. And this is where it comes into play. Like, this is the point at which it does work out for him. Because still, all of the returnees are like, listen, I'm not completely buying what this guy is selling. Like, I know I still can't, I can't fully trust JS. I know that, like everybody other than Doug. But he's put in enough work and has built enough of those inroads previously that this time when he goes to them with this information that Katie can confirm is true and like is coming to them with all of this stuff, and it gives them enough to actually make him believable. So I actually think that, yeah, the way that JS played this round, I was actually really impressed.
Yeah, JS strategically played really well. Like he said from the beginning, he's like, I'm flipping, I'm a flapjack, whatever. I think had he just completely turned off the JS character for 1 week, I think he would have been able to gain more respect. Because I'm sorry, the moment Miranda gets voted out and you say happy birthday, biatch, like that's someone, me personally, I would never vote for because that's just like unnecessarily cruel.
Exactly.
And like I would forever hate that person. Like if I was in Miranda's shoes, like I'd be poisoning that jury against JS, which I mean isn't that hard. Like I don't think it's hard to poison
all the
jury
famous
against
JS lovers. Dylan, Fish, Andrew.
But like you're not doing yourself any favors by doing that because like getting voted off on your birthday is hard. So like maybe don't say that. Like you could have just been like, yep, I flipped. That was me when Tony like called you out for being like the snitch or whatever, but you didn't have to go all in and attack Miranda because she didn't really do anything.
That's been JS since the Faith vote.
Like, applauding when Faith gets voted out. Like, yeah.
That was pre-merge. Now we're in the jury. Like, let that go. Like, if you're gonna be evil in the, like he said that he wanted to be nice in the beginning, and evil in the merge, but he's been like evil and mean since
well,
like.
Did he also yell? He yelled like "newbie strong" when Dylan went. Like it's
newbie
like
strong?
It's not new. It's still not new even in jury phase. Unfortunately.
And you know what? Be consistent then. Maybe that'll earn some respect. I don't know.
I don't think Doug knows how to tells him how to manage a jury, to be fair. I think that's the one thing he can't explain to him anyway.
Well, I also want to bring up JS is so funny. We do get a sense from JS as well, like I think it was at the beginning of Merge where he's like, flippers never win this game. No one should flip. And he also mentions like, I want to be the one to flip the game. Like, I'm going to be the flipper. I think it's so interesting that JS presents this idea of like, I'm never going to flip. Like, that's just not how I'm going to play. And then he absolutely does flip because that's how he would play. And just like, it's so funny. He poisons everyone from flipping, does it himself, and then is like, it was good for my game. Sorry.
And that, at the end of the day, unfortunately, very smart.
When he didn't want people to flip, he was like, why would you ever do that? And then when it benefited him, he was like, of course I'm going to do that. As he should in both scenarios.
I mean, people should have realized it when cell phones weren't being collected. So, like, if you're gonna do that for one round, like, you gotta keep that up. Or like, I would be like, why aren't we collecting phones like we used to?
I would have never done the cell phone thing, and I think at that point I would have just voted out JS if you're so worried about a snitch.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But let's also talk a little bit about Matrio. Not only did they not reach out to Michaela and really try to cement, like they did, but they didn't think it would work, so they didn't put in effort. They meet with JS. They go, let's go for egg roll because Michaela wouldn't go to rocks for egg roll, despite the fact she has immunity. And then they float out the idea of let's use the removal idol to not make it 5/5, and then don't. I mean, there's a lot of complicated reasons why they don't, which is just like they don't think they need to. It might anger too many people, which is like very funny to think about now. But it's just like they are underplaying and overplaying at the same time. They're too focused on the future, on the 7 steps ahead, but they're not actually making the first step.
Mm-hmm. Like it, because JS made that comparison. Like, you had to play this game like chess. You have to like think about your opponent's 7 moves ahead. But like, if the queen's in your head and towards you, like, I'd move that piece first. Like, I wouldn't just sit there and be like, but no, I have to get the knight out in 5 turns. I can't move from this spot. It's just silly.
Am I getting this quote correctly? There's like JS meets with the returnees and he gives a confessional where he's like, I'm playing the game like a returnee because I'm playing the game like a mastermind and blah, blah, blah. Like, I wrote that down, but I was also in disbelief. A
mastermind, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he said master at first and I was like, and then he said mastermind. I was like, okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's like part of the JS experience though this season is that like I think it's clear that he does have a really good mind for the game. I mean, even though like it had some repercussions for him about how like he would lie about like the fake arguments and all that, and he was the one trying to get in close to the returnees. Like, even though that wasn't great for him, like it does show a good mind for the game. Like, he is really creative. He's clearly like someone that can have a lot of the right ideas, but then there's this like self-sabotaging side. And I just think all of that comes together to make this like honestly really compelling character. Like, I don't know. I still like villains on Survivor, like even though it's not really a thing as much in recent seasons. I mean, like from a casting perspective, not an editing perspective. Editing, like it's all great, but I really enjoy it. I think there's like he's really dominated this season from a character standpoint, and I think rightfully so. Like, there just haven't, when you really think about it, like there haven't been a lot of people like JS like on Survivor, and which is hard to do after so many seasons. So it's kind of compelling to watch it and see it all play out. And I think that like he has shown genuine skill. I hope it happens. I don't know what happens later Maryland seasons, but like returnee JS, I feel like that experience would be.
Well, he's a senior, so it won't happen. But I mean, they
need to get him to play under.
I think Mother Michaela said it best in JS is the kind of person you can take in doses. And I think
weekly doses. This is 100%. Like weekly doses. I don't want the live feeds. I want like
even
JS
that,
Mondays.
I'm just like, when half of the episode is JS confessionals, I'm like, that's a few too many doses. I think I'm overdosed. But that's just the
she's overdosing.
Stuff. That's the character. Again, that's the character stuff. If he was just like, and here's the thing. I just wanted to be clear. I don't have an issue with villains. I have an issue with just like this character that JS is playing. And it's just not a character that's for me. But strategically, I think when the strategic side of him shines, it really shines.
But Aaron, what's the opposite of love? It's
Indifference.
exactly. Like he's such a polar, like that hate that you're feeling, like it's a strong emotion, like it's making you feel alive. It's like giving meaning to your life to hate JS on your screen. And
I promise you I would have a lot of meaning without that.
That's the gift that JS gives all of us. I actually, like, honestly, I do think like there is like
I'm still crying about Andrew, and that's giving me plenty of meaning.
The way that
he was hitting the episode.
I know he was.
He's like
I wrote that down.
He's sacrificing himself on the altar of reality TV. Like he has to know on some level that some of these confessionals and the things he's saying are like a little bit overstepping what's going on. I think there's like at least some awareness of that, but he wants to make good TV. He clearly has that as like some level of priority, that he wants to be fun on TV and all that. And he's giving that. He is providing that to us. I love JS.
Also, it's important to note that JS has a really good game sense of what's going on, and just a complete inability not to do the most at all time and be just a little too much. Like, I think there is the beauty of,
he could be such an amazing player if he did just dial it back.
No, I think it's even more impressive that he is such a good player, despite his personality being so impossible to deal with.
And that's what makes it like fascinating to me rather than just like annoying, because it's like on this backdrop of like someone that could otherwise be a good player. Like he's not like what was his name, Colton from Survivor 24? Like those like more like, you know, people like that.
Colton Cumby?
Not a bad comparison.
I mean, whatever. You can make whatever comparison you want. You know, like there's certain people like that are, well, I'm just saying, like, you know, like these kind of like disaster players that are just like disasters. There's no like other redeeming quality. Like with JS, it's just like that on the backdrop of like, you know, chaotic energy on the backdrop of like a good player that knows what's going on.
I would maybe liken him more to, off the top of my head, maybe like a Tony, in the sense that he's like a lot. Tony's much nicer, much more just like chaotic, where JS is much meaner. But like there is that same energy of just like very over the top, very aggressive, but not incompetent.
I think for me too, a lot of it is that like his alliance that he built, which was a good move, got annoyed by him. And I just don't think that they didn't vote him out because of anything he did. I think they were just like, this is like, we're stuck in this. This is an alliance that's good for us. But like they were a moment's notice at any minute from being like they were constantly saying, we're sick of JS. We're sick of JS. Like, we're just like, we're done with him. And they were just like at a moment's notice, like any small thing. If they had better returnees on their tribe, I think any small thing could have pushed them over the edge to vote out JS, actually.
And that's why the returnee narrative is so important, because that's what kept them from flipping. But you know what? We can JS is still going to be here next week. We'll have so much time to still look at and deal with JS. Let's talk about Tony. Let's talk about this moment where Tony is aware JS is probably going to flip on them. He's aware that he might lose all of his power. And what does he do instead of take action to make sure that nothing flips? Let's save Miranda or Jack. He goes to Katie and goes, this isn't fair. You have all the power and I don't have any. And I hope it's not going to flip to me. And then calls her during confessional to go like, it's really fucked up what you're doing. And if I go home, like if it flips, I'm going to be pissed at you. Like you're controlling it all.
Did he call her back? Like once she hung up and like she started like talking about Tony? Like I heard the phone ring again. Was that Tony again?
You know what? She did not answer it. So hard to say.
Because I was like, if he's calling back after that conversation ended, like, get a life. Like, let's go. Weird.
Yeah, that was truly insane. Yeah, and then this is where the quote comes in, where Tony says, you guys have been controlling the whole game and you act like you're not. And then Katie says, we didn't decide, Fish and Michaela. We weren't in control when Dylan went home. And it's like the only reason that they were able to send out Andrew even was because of an idol. Like, if they didn't have that, they didn't have control. So it's like, actually, guess what? You've been controlling this whole game. This is the first time that you're not. Now you're whining about it and acting like everything is, like, falling down and you've never had an ounce of control this whole time.
Yeah, when Tony told Katie about Andrew being the vote as well. So, or, like, that Morgan was getting the vote. So, like, Tony, you're giving Katie this control for one round, but then she doesn't have control for a couple rounds, and then you're being like, you're the mastermind.
Yeah.
This is so not cool. Like, I want this power. How dare you? Weird.
I actually don't have a huge issue with Tony just mostly sitting there and not doing a whole lot. Like when you have someone on both sides, there has to be a little give and take. What do you really want him to do without blowing up he and Katie's entire relationship? It's going to be really hard for him to go to anybody and give this information without saying where he got it from, why he's like trying to flip everything now. And he has voted out a few of Katie's allies, so maybe he can lose one. I don't have a huge issue with him like not doing anything about it as long as he has a plan moving forward. And the conversation with Katie was bad. What he needed to be saying was, okay, this is fine, but where are we going next week? Because like you have your few people, I now only have a few people left. Like let's start focusing elsewhere and maybe team up our little alliances rather than like keeping the game as it's going. So I have a bigger issue with how he went about it rather than like him not actually doing anything strategically from it.
That's the thing to me, is it feels like instead of having this relationship with Katie where he's like, let's work from both sides, let's like go at it from both angles, I'll explain like what my path moving forward is, you explain what yours, we'll meet in the middle somewhere. It feels to me, he treats Katie as if she's somebody who is not in the game, who he talks about the game to. And he's like, hey, this is what's happening in my game, these are my allies, blah, 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 this is what's going on, do with that information what you will. And like, doesn't really care until it's actually, because from before now, it didn't really affect him. Like even at the Andrew vote, he knew that it wasn't going to land on him. He knew that Katie was going to protect him. So like he's just telling her all of this information as if she's just like not a part of the game. But then as soon as she does get an ounce of control, as soon as she is like an actual player in this game, he's like, actually, that doesn't really work for me. Like I'm not okay with that actually. And like that's what it feels like to me. Is that because he hasn't set this up as like we're playing from both sides, we're going to make it to the end together, blah blah blah, like she's not part of his path moving forward. Genuinely. Like as much as he's going to say like I want to bring you to 4, like whatever, he hasn't planned that out. He hasn't done anything to make that happen. He's still riding this newbie strong thing the whole way because that's what's going to work for him. And at a certain point, he's not going to have the leverage and the control to protect Katie and get her to 4. So then the second that it doesn't benefit him, that he's not going to make it to 4 anyway, with or without Katie, then he's like, he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, but he was also named most handsome in this episode.
Which was also insane. Which was also
so it's kind
insane.
of even. It's probably like an even episode for him. Like, yeah, like he tanked his game, but he got that. So.
Maybe that's why he played so badly. He was like, "Oh, I'm hot."
Well, I don't want to.
Katie is right there, or Morgan, or anybody else. It was just such an insane
A majority
answer.
of the cast at that point is women who like men. So unfortunately, I don't know what you wanted from them.
I'm also a woman who likes men, and I still think
and you hate Tony, so that's different.
There. Yeah.
This comment from Eric: if Tony knew, he should have pushed Miranda to use her game changer. So Tony did know that. Let's be clear. Tony knew what was going to happen and still did nothing. This is also a great comment. Should Tony have prevented this? Either that or flip.
Yeah, or tell her to use the game changer. Like that wouldn't have forced a rock draw. It would have avoided one.
Or give it to someone. Like
it's going to be 5-4 still.
Give it to someone is a good idea. Yeah, if
you know Miranda's going home. You're going to go to Miranda and say, hey, can I have this? You're going to get voted out? What? Like, what do you want her to do?
I mean, that's how he would approach it, to be fair.
What?
But it's at least like, even if
I don't understand what you wanted him to do even with this information.
Also, why did he look so shocked? Was he just acting at the end of Tribal? He looked so shocked.
Yes.
That was so stupid. That's so stupid.
It was weird. It was giving Lavana putting her hand on Kara's shoulder in the Michigan season. Like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yes, you knew.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I think as long as he has a plan with Katie moving forward.
But he doesn't. He doesn't.
well,
though.
that's the bigger issue was the
But
conversation.
you can't put these hypotheticals in that he's quite literally not
Well,
you are saying this is what Tony should be or what what you want him to be. It is not what Tony is or what he is doing at all.
But what do you want him to do with this information?
Anything. Just talk at least talk to Katie about it or try to make something maybe be better with JS. And say, listen, I understand why you might want to flip right now. I know that we just all lied to you. Maybe just handle that better. Maybe actually make a long-term plan with him instead of saying, I'll tell you what I want to do this vote.
But this was my point, was that he did do that. He just didn't execute well. So what you're saying you want him to do, he did it. He just didn't execute it.
He really just didn't, though.
Well, I think
he had the conversation with JS.
I'm not saying I want him to have a conversation. I'm saying I want him to have a good one.
Well, okay, you can't make up a thing to exist. You can't change people from who they are. I think he should have. I think he should have told Jack and Miranda and Sam that JS is flipping, rather than allow them to live in Goo Goo Gaga world where everything is still perfect.
But where is he saying he's getting this information, Anders?
Just doing
he'd lie again.
Yeah, just like when JS was like, we all just when he was like, oh, they definitely didn't know, they just guessed that we were gonna vote Morgan because of what we said. Tony could just be like, listen, obviously JS is mad. Obviously we just blindsided him. You can just say yeah, why would he stick with us after this?
He could say Sherry told them. She heard the conversation with Doug and...
We have not even talked about that Sherry was there for that. I can't believe we missed that.
Yeah, Sherry was here.
Sherry leaked the information from JS and Doug's conversation. That's how Tony knew. Easy.
But they still only have 4 votes. Even if they all know they're on the bottom, they can't do anything.
But then don't be a whiny bitch about it.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
How about that?
I'm just saying I don't necessarily think that he should have blown up the entire game to try to save Miranda.
Look, I love a little bit of a chaos. So if I'm in Tony's position, I'm absolutely blowing up the game. If I'm going to lose an ally, I'm going to blow up this game so something can change. Because in the same way we've talked about, the returners aren't the tightest 4 in the world. If you suddenly blow up the opposing alliance and there's just chaos, there is more going on than we think we're 5 tight. We're going to vote how we vote. That something can happen. I think the truth of the matter is, by doing nothing and allowing the blindside to occur, yeah, you're in the bottom, but you've actively done nothing to set yourself up moving forward. Because now you're also mad at everyone in the majority when you knew what they were going to do. So you're mad for no reason.
That's always Tony, though. Tony's
but
always.
I think in the world where he blows it up, all that he's doing is he's still on the bottom, and Katie is pissed at him probably, and Katie's now willing to vote him out next week and whatever. So which is
already true.
You could be putting yourself in the worst position and still be on the bottom and have nobody to protect you.
I'm sympathetic to what Cooper's saying. I just think that it's also if you choose not to tell your allies that is an act, that's something you're withholding from them. And if that comes up later, it's Jack finds out, oh, you knew that Miranda was going, what the hell, dude? I think that's another thing that comes up. So even if it can't actually affect the game in a way, I think it probably just makes sense to at the very least, he should give them the heads up right after tribal, hey, this shit went down. But I think some kind of heads up probably just makes sense long term.
And I agree with that. And also, Lyoko, you're so right. He's allowed to be mad, but he has to stop being mad because he's got to work.
Because it's actually not smart. It's not smart for him to be mad.
Do we all think Tony's going to take his own advice?
God, no.
Oh.
That'd be such a good scene.
What do we think? Michaela is you're allowed to be mad. No, Michaela is not that petty, but if only.
I wish she was.
So we coming out of this, I mean, Tony, Jack, and Sam are all blindsided by this. They're in the minority. Miranda goes home with her advantage, and I want to highlight this. Miranda has a very funny quote in one of her earlier confessionals saying, "I'm not going to waste this like I wasted my tribe swap." And then she does. Mm-hmm. And then she does.
Saw that coming.
I just can't, I just don't know, looking forward, when is a better time to use that? If you think you're going in 4-4, but even then, it's right now you think you're 5-5, so why do you think it would be 4-4 at that point? What is a better time to use it than now? Like I just cannot comprehend why she didn't use it.
They should have avoided the possibility of rocks to begin with, and just like in their minds have it be 5-4.
Right.
Like,
and not banked on the fact that this person who you haven't talked to all week isn't gonna that is immune, isn't gonna go to rocks for Eric. Like, so genuinely so dumb.
Could Miranda have played the safety without the remover idol on Michaela?
Yeah.
Oh, that honestly should have been the play, because then it leaves more like rock. Well, I guess rocks wouldn't happen at that point, so maybe never mind. But like, use it. Use it.
My fear of season 7 was that it was too stagnant. No one could do anything. So coming into season 8, I said, what if we give them all the tools in the world and they can use all of it? And then when they choose not to, it's like, well, it really is your fault that you went home. Like, you have tools, you didn't use it. Obviously, I'm not saying that had she used this round, it would have changed everything. But like, she had 2 game changers, used neither, and it's how the game ended up. I'm not saying the tribe swap would have radically changed everything, but it could have, and she didn't try it.
I think if she did that, she would have been able to build more relationships that weren't her alliance, and it would have like allowed her to play a more active game. So I do think that
you
both
say
instances,
that, but also she's had this whole merge to build new relationships outside of her alliance and has chosen not to.
But like, you had the whole newbie returnee wall that was happening, so like there really wasn't that much opportunity to do so. I mean, get the last 2 weeks, absolutely. So like that's her own fault. But flop.
She could have used it on herself also.
She could have?
Oh my god.
Yes.
Well,
I thought you said she couldn't.
No, she can use it on herself.
Oh. No.
Maybe
it is like a safety without power, except you can play it on anyone.
Interesting.
She thought it was going to be 5-5 though. She's not going to use it on herself.
No, for sure. But she should have used it on Michaela or anybody from the other side.
I will play devil's advocate a little bit again and say
I'm shocked.
I don't think there was ever a good time for her to use that tribe swap. I don't know why she would have ever picked a different tribe that she was already on in the majority of pre-merge. And this safety without power, I don't think she had a great time to use that up until this vote. And even then it wouldn't have mattered this vote. So I'm not going to fault her too much for not using either advantage. You could say she should have used it this time if she thought it was going to be 5-5. I was shocked when she didn't. But even so, that's only because that's what she should have been thinking, not even what was actually going on when it wouldn't have mattered. She still would have gone home.
But she was surprised by the vote. Like, she was surprised that she didn't get her way in this tribal. Like, those 2 swing votes of like Michaela and JS. Like, if you think you don't have both either, then okay, fine, it doesn't matter. But then you shouldn't be blindsided then. But she was blindsided. So clearly she thought she had at least one of those votes. And then if you think you do, then the advantage actually is useful at that point.
Agreed. I think she should have played it this time, but in the end, you can't really fault her for not, because it wouldn't have mattered. But yeah, in her mind,
based on her knowledge, you actually can fault her for it, and I will.
I'm with Erin on that. Yeah, like
I
from her perspective of the game.
Yeah,
I agree with
that. Here's a question I want to expand to all of you. Did you expect these to be the last 4 returning players? The Katie, Doug, Morgan, Eric, 4 returners.
I think I expected Faith to go further, but I didn't expect Mike to make it far. Who's the other one who left?
Dylan.
Sherry.
Dylan, I figured would make merge, but not make it to the end. Morgan, I probably didn't expect to make it to merge, but other than that, it doesn't surprise me because I knew Sherry was an early boot, so.
I would swap Faith for Morgan as well, probably. But outside of that, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, Faith for Eric, probably. I feel like there hasn't been enough Eric slander on this roundtable, but
and there shouldn't be. And how dare you even say that?
Well, saying he wants to take Katie to the end.
Yeah.
Congrats, you can lose the game, sure.
Yeah, that's called loyalty. Maybe you guys should look it up.
Well,
not playing the mutiny advantage and just sort of like going down with the Titanic a little bit.
Okay, and that was bad, and Cooper has already talked about that.
But I do think like you losing like 2 of your allies, Faith and Mike, and be like, you know what, 3rd time's the charm. I'm gonna help Katie make it to the end is a bold choice.
I mean, what are his other options right now?
Not try and make it right a 3rd time. Do something. It didn't work 2 times.
Literally anybody else in the game.
Yeah, try something else.
Who is he close with outside of Katie? Name a person. Name a person. Name one.
Name a woman.
Okay, this has been an acceptable amount of Eric's slander now. Okay, we can return to normal.
All right, back to our regular
Affairs.
scheduled program.
You know what?
didn't
To
like
his
it.
credit, he has really shifted his relationship with Doug from the beginning of the season going, I need Doug out, to I'm working with Doug. And even this episode, he's working with JS.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
still, Doug has a closer ally than him and Eric. So
When
What's-
Eric sat down in his voting confessional and said, "Hello, Eggroll Eric fans," I was like, "That's me. He's talking to me."
I wonder who else had that thought.
A lot of
Yeah,
people,
raise your
Devin.
hand.
A lot
Raise
of people.
your hand if anyone in here thought that was directed at them. Wow. A lot of JS support and not enough Eric support.
I texted.
I'm a
I
Michaela
actually.
Mother
And I'll
warrior.
stand by that.
I texted Anders right after that happened, and I said, "He's talking directly to me. I can tell."
So okay, we have finally the returners have the majority in this game. Those four, Michaela and JS, are the six. They just voted out Miranda. It's now Jack, Tony, and Sam on the bottom. What's gonna happen next? Who's gonna go home?
I know what's gonna happen. Jack's gonna be able to check another thing off her bucket list because she's about to win immunity and be safe. And that's what's going to like start the whole six flipping on each other, because I think Jack's the obvious like target, and like I don't think they would vote Tony out. I don't think they would vote Sam out. And if Jack's not a viable option, it makes sense that the six would implode on itself, because it's not really a solid six to begin with. Like, it's not a group that had like came together and said, we're final six, we're six, we're gonna do this. It's just six people that wanted to vote Miranda out. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if one of those six people go home, because I don't see a world where Sam doesn't make it a few rounds further. Even though I don't know why they'd said she didn't deserve, she got into Maryland by mistake. That was such a weird choice. And then I think
And
Tony's
she's in Gemstone.
She's in Gemstone.
She said, "You question my genius."
She's like, I'm in Gemstone with Jack. And
I
you said
love
Jack's gonna
her.
win, and it's the most. I'm the same as her. And I think Tony's
And
too
she's
well connected to Katie to. So I think Jack is gonna win immunity, and I think that's gonna kickstart some chaos. And then also JS is still in the game, so chaos is still gonna ensue.
Who do we think is gonna win?
Michaela.
Erin, looking at this game, who's gonna win?
Andrew.
Okay. Well, and keep holding on to that.
And
Keep
I
holding on
will.
to that.
Edge of extinction,
will.
baby. Here we come.
Exactly. Oh, I did want to bring up, like, in that, when, like, in Tribal, he was like, love Jack. Like, he said that, like, after one of her answers. And I was like, interesting. Foreshadowing, maybe? Like, she does. She genuinely does have so much going for her. Like, she's like, yeah, she won most likely to win. Like, blah, blah, blah. She won all of these good things. She literally has the jury saying that they love her. Like, just to her answers at Tribal. Like, I'm like, that's a lot. That's a lot going for her.
Yeah, and just like last season, most likely to win is going to win the season.
Exactly.
The joke there is that Doug won it last season.
Yeah.
Devin, who do you think is going to win?
There's a lot of people right now that I think can't win, but honestly,
Yeah,
like
probably like what, 11?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of people in the game currently, as of this recording, that don't have much of a chance. I feels like, as weird as it sounds, I just think it, based on the game and potentially on the edit a bit, I think it could be Katie. As weird as it sounds, I think the path is out there for her to just take it down again. I honestly, I do think she's the favorite. At this point, it's weird to say. It feels like, no, it can't be true. How can she win twice with this reputation? But like, she's playing the best, and the seeds are there of like people saying that they actually would bring her to the end. And I think at the very least, she's in a good spot to make it up to final immunity, which she's clutched out before. And she has an idol, which is going to help her get to that point.
We didn't even talk about that. Yeah, Katie got a fucking idol with
Oh,
Micah's
yeah.
shovel.
Micah's a game changer. That's my king.
Yeah, and he did it. He helped her get an idol, just like Soka Trio always did. How do we feel about Katie getting an idol? Let's go back. Let's talk about it. She did it. Queen finally got something. Never found a game changer. She got the idol though. 6 inches deep.
I love the fact that she found it in broad daylight with a giant shovel on campus and then proceeds to run away in the most like suspicious manner. I was really expecting a confessional being like, I was walking around and I just see Katie running and Anders filming her. Like it was so weird, but then I guess she just got away with it. And that's mother.
She needed to flee the scene though. You can't be spotted near the idol with a shovel.
Yeah.
That's worse.
Oh, that's fair. Or she could just dig in the wrong places. Like she'd be like, yeah, I'm looking for it. I'm looking for it.
I mean, but I think at this point they all like know where it is though, is the thing. There's one pine tree on campus apparently, and not everybody even knows what a pine tree is.
You gotta get out of there quick.
She got, what was it? ASAP like Rocky.
Yeah,
Yes.
ASAP like Rocky. I love that she has the idol because she is a smart enough player that having it is not going to change the way that she plays the game. So she's going to continue to socially and strategically put herself in safe positions. And now she has the idol as a fallback option or to protect an ally or just make something happen that she wants to happen.
Yeah, to be like the best player, like in the GOAT argument for Survivor Maryland, like you don't have to, or Survivor in general, whatever. Like you don't have to be good at everything, but I think Katie might be like, strategy, social, competitions. She like clutched out that final immunity. Now she has an idol, good jury management. I actually think she's probably like one of the more like well balanced players out there, and I think this cements that for herself.
Anders, is this idol good until 6? Is that what she said?
5.
It's good until 5, so it can get her
Yeah.
to 4?
Yeah.
Got it.
She was saying like this will get me till 5, and then I need to think of a new plan.
Got it.
Cooper, who do you think is going to win the game?
So when I was on a few episodes ago, I was pretty convinced it was Jack. And I was prepared to come into this episode and say the same thing. And then I watched the episode and specifically the challenge. And I said, oh no, this is not going well. But I still said, I'll stick by Jack. I'll stick by Jack. And then Katie found the idol. And I said, I just don't see when Katie gets voted out. I really don't. And Eric said, I'll take you to final 3. And I said, well, I think she has the relationships to get to like 5 or 6. And an idol, and people who may or may not vote with her at 4, as well as the fact that if you do any kind of like endurance challenge at the final 4 of just hold on to this thing for dear life, Katie will win that challenge. Katie will win that challenge. So like, when is she going? The answer I think is never. And I think if she gets to the final 3, how does she not win? So I said last time there was Katie had all of like the markings to she should have been my winner pick, but I was like, no one will let her get to the end. And I'm now convinced that they will just let her get to the end because I think nobody wants to vote her out anytime soon and they're going to run out of time very quickly. So I'm going to say
like
Katie.
Dylan said, you're running out of time.
I don't know how we got to this point in the season where Katie is a front runner to win, but she is. It's crazy.
Anders, can I give a serious answer?
Is Michaela not a serious answer?
Michaela's not winning. As much as I love Michaela,
Somebody timestamp that. Somebody
listen,
record
I
this.
love her, but I'm also realistic. Michaela has not been on the edge of contenders list like this entire time. Like she is not winning. But I did have Jack as like top contender. But honestly, mostly I think it was because like I was like, I just don't think Katie can win again. But like echoing what other people have said, like Katie has put in the work socially. I think she can do well strategically, like as the game moves forward. And like the way that she hyped up Sam's game at Tribal, I was like, Sam's jury vote locked. Like I was like, Katie just knows exactly. Like if Katie can somehow make it to the end and win this game, like there's no doubt in my mind that she's better than Tony. She's better than Sandra. She's like when
Tony
I said at the beginning of this,
I thought you meant
like
Tony of this season. I'm like,
oh, well, of course she's better than Tony. No, she's better than Tony. But like when I say Katie will get the first call for Survivor 50, like I mean it. Like Jesse Tannenbaum, what are you waiting for? Hello.
I do want to make a point of like the whole Katie and Sam thing. When I was watching that, I'm like, she's not talking about Sam. Like, she's just talking about herself right now, being like, people doubt her, but like, she's doing a lot in this game, and when she gets to the end, she can show it to everyone. It's like, bitch, you know she's not talking about Sam. No one is talking about Sam.
Yes, she is.
It was good jury management already. I agree with Jack on this completely.
Do you think Sam was? Here's my question. Do you think Sam was sitting there thinking like, I haven't been doing much. What is she doing? What is this woman talking about? Or is she like, you know what? I'm glad somebody sees what I'm doing.
I think Sam's playing in her own way, where she thinks she's playing well. Because I mean, like in the conversation with the newbies, she's like, Eric's got an idol. Based on
that was so funny. Wait, I did write that down. That was so fucking funny. Like, where did that come from?
Like, I'm like, where was this conversation? Like, what?
She was like, he told me he had an idol. Like, what was
it? It seemed like she just wants to be involved, and she's like, I'm gonna throw this out there and just see what they say.
She knows her game, and you don't. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, like, we've seen their relationship, like Eric and Sam, but like, we didn't see that conversation. Like, she's just like holding on to like, I don't know what she's doing, but Queen.
Was so funny to me. I put like 4 question marks after that in my notes. I was like, Sam says Eric told her he has an idol. Like,
I think I also have like 4 question marks. Yeah.
And what JS goes, he told you, and she goes, well, he called me, and I'm like, you have the idol, don't you? And he goes, it's probably not in my best interest to say, and it's like, that's not a yes.
Oh, she's so funny.
Are there any other moments that are in your notes that you guys want to talk about?
No,
that we didn't cover?
Yeah, Tony hate.
Katie shovel in all caps.
Michaela CPPPP5. No, I think we covered everything.
Well, let's get to plugs then. Call me a tub because it's time to plug. Erin?
I didn't like that.
Okay.
I will go ahead and plug once again. The whole season is out now. Scotty Survivor Season 3, Pirates Plunge. You can binge the entire thing if you are behind. But the whole thing has been released. You can watch it top to bottom. It is a fantastic and crazy season. If you like crazy characters, crazy gameplay, and a lot of interesting votes, definitely check that out.
Devon.
Yeah, I was on last summer. I was on this thing called Subversion Live. It's like a live version of this like online mole game. Super fun, really like dedicated production. I think it's going to be one of the better live games out there. Actually, no, it's already out. Why am I saying like future tense? It was really good, except for the part where I did not win, unfortunately. But
spoilers.
It is what it is. And then later on, I think like next year or so, there's going to be a series called Surviving Canada, which is like a live Survivor game that I did shortly afterwards. That was super fun and run by great people. Yeah.
All right, Subversion Live and then Surviving Canada. I wouldn't. Cooper, anything that you'd like to plug?
Survivor Michigan, as always. All 6 seasons are out on the Gen 1 and Gen 2 YouTube channels. Go watch those. I will also give a shout out to Survivor San Diego, which is starting to air its 2nd season, and Keep Your Torch Lit, which is the Survivor Michigan podcast, is covering it. So go watch the season, go watch the podcast. Shout out.
And then Jack, anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, 2 things. I do run the Survivor Maryland wiki, so feel free to check that out. Or if you're a past player who wants things removed, feel free to TM me instead of doing a takedown request and trying to get the season removed. And then also, I am a singer-songwriter. I released a song last month called Honest, so you can stream that on any music platform. It's Honest by Jack Connorz. That's Connorz. Thank you.
Well, great. And then I'm just going to plug, watch Survivor Maryland. If you guys haven't watched the season, watch it again. Just keep watching this over and over and over. And if you aren't, you should subscribe right now. Subscribe, comment, like. Really boost that algorithm.
Notification bell.
Hit that notification bell. And if you want to sign up to our Patreon, I don't have one, but if you want to send me money, I'm kidding. You can't, and you shouldn't.
I did it, unfortunately.
But thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you love Tony and JS, you're going to get more of them next week. All right. I can't wait for the final 3 of Tony, JS, and fuck it. We're bringing Mike back.
Oh my god, wait, can I show real quick JS's tweet?
Oh yes, this week JS put out a very funny tweet tagging
It was
Erin.
very funny.
And we're calling it tweet and not, what are they called, X's now?
It's just called a post. It's JS and Tony, and JS said added me, and it said it's Erin's 2 favorite people hanging out. We love you too, Erin. He did use the wrong 2. I want to point that out. But yeah. So they're hanging out, they're having a great time, and I thought that this was very funny. And I will say the pandering has no impact on my opinions of JS this episode, although I do enjoy it.
Well, you're in their minds just as they're in yours. Well, thank you guys so much for following, joining, and watching and listening to us scream. JS is here to remind us. Yeah, he is friends with Tony, even though Tony. Oh yeah, and then the next time we do love Tony going, I never fucking liked you. You suck. Eric going, I've got to change in my game. Let's go final 2. Sam going, we got to get rid of JS. We don't have to talk about it because it's probably bullshit, right? But you'll find out next week. All right. Goodbye, everyone. See you next week for the thrilling conclusion of episode 12. All right, bye.